I would advise, rather than niching down, everybody we work with, I go through this exercise. We have multiple locations. We have 7 Google business profiles for our 7 different office locations. I love Billboards, but I think they're too expensive. This is where I think you need to niche down.
If you want to stick top of mind, people are like, Billboards are top of mind. I'm like, Billboards aren't top of mind, man. Nobody's driving.
And the first 500 or so videos were literally filmed on this.
Welcome back to another episode of the Scales of Success podcast. Today, I'm joined by Mark Real Jr. He is the founder and CEO of Real Fathers' Rights, Southern California family law firm dedicated to representing fathers throughout California. Mark, welcome to the show. How we doing?
I'm good. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good. I'm glad we're doing this because at the end of all these interviews, I ask if there's anybody else that we should interview. And actually 2 people, their family lawyers, told me that I got to reach out to you. And then I started following you, started seeing a ton of your content. Really, really love what you're doing. So today we're going to be primarily talking about acquisition. And I want to just kind of open it up there and start there. So talk to me about your top lead generation strategies and channels. Like, what you guys are doing a lot of stuff. Talk to me a little bit about what you're doing high level.
Yeah, on a high level, I mean, we have a full-on internal marketing department. We also utilize vendors. Our core strategy is Google. That is our main lead generation source. We're pushing about $250,000 a month that we pump into Google. We also utilize Meta, and then we produce a significant amount of social media content that is directed at our ideal client.
Okay, perfect. In terms of order of operations, because I mean, you're sitting in a studio right now in your office. Before we came online, you said that this is a requirement of all of your offices that they have to have some sort of space to create content. So did you lead with that? I mean, you're very active on Instagram, or did Google primarily lay the foundation for the growth that you're experiencing?
Really, it was both. In the beginning, I had one of the luckiest starts. And when I say lucky, there's a lot that went into getting lucky. But kind of rolling back to the beginning. So I myself am a father. My twins are getting ready to turn 7 years old. And when they were born, I went through the family court process. And it was absolutely awful. It is miserable for men. So when I went to found my law firm, there was only one logical place for me to go, is I wanted to represent men. I wanted to create a better solution for men. Well, in the years prior to me becoming an attorney, I was very active in a lot of equal and shared parenting, fathers' rights groups, different things like that. I happened to befriend, at the time, he was the media director of the fathers' rights movement, which is the largest social network or social group on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube in the space. And I became an attorney, and less than 48 hours after I became an attorney, I sent this gentleman a message on Facebook and said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a weekly show. Would you be willing to help me get it off the ground? Not only did he help me get it off the ground, he offered up for me to be able to go live on the Fathers' Rights Facebook page and YouTube page with about 1.5 million followers. So I filmed my first live show that I think we got like 80,000 views, and I'd been an attorney for less than a week.
So something that we'll get back to the acquisition stuff in a second, but you touched on something that I think is important because, so our agency, we only work with law firms, and what I've been doing marketing, specifically search marketing, for 15, 16 years now. And there is nothing quite like the legal industry, especially right now, especially if we're talking, family, injury, accident are some of the most competitive spaces on the internet, hands down. Something that I try and push a lot of my clients to do, especially that are on the younger side in terms of their business, is to specialize, right? You can't get into personal injury. I'm in Miami, in Southern Florida, Southern California, and just think that you're going to compete with some of the people out there. Same thing with family, right? So I push them a lot to consider specializations, and even like sub-specializations within that. Like trucking is a sub practice area of injury, and there's so much within trucking that you can dive into as well. So you kind of backed into, a specialization within family and divorce because of your experience. Is that something that you would advise to other attorneys as well, to focus on a niche within a practice area before trying to get into, or is that something just based on your experience that you felt like it was necessary?
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a right answer to this, but I would advise, rather than niching down, everybody we work with, everybody we talk to help them build their practice, I go through this exercise. I say, I want you to write down your top 5 clients you've ever had. If you could just have those same 5 clients on repeat over and over and over again. Now we're going to write down like, hey, what was their income, their marital status, kids, jobs. We're going to write down every single little detail we can find about those 5 people, and we're going to find the commonalities. Because if you take it back, what is marketing? Marketing is putting a message out to the public and having your ideal client feel like you are talking specifically to them. So we're sending a message out to the masses, and that one man, that entrepreneur that owns a couple houses, that has a 6, 7, 8-figure business, feels like I'm talking to him. So rather than saying, hey, you need to go pick a niche, I would say you need to go pick an ideal client and then build your marketing campaigns around your ideal client. In family law, for example, you won't see any new content coming out from me talking about child support. Now, there are an abundance of child support cases. They are not the most lucrative cases. You're going to hear me and my attorneys talking about stock options and businesses and vacation homes because that is what our ideal client has.
So when we apply that to search, right? So for social, that makes complete sense, right? Especially with the way the algorithms are. We run a ton of paid social traffic as well. Unless you're getting our ads now, I apologize. They're gonna be hitting you nonstop. We run a ton of paid social traffic ourselves, and we'll talk more about that because again, you had some interesting nuggets that I want to dive into when we were offline talking about this before this. But when it comes to search, right? There's no really. It's much more difficult to dig out the psychographic targeting behind somebody who's searching, right? If I'm looking for a divorce, child support in your region, I'm just using those keywords. I'm probably not going to modify it by saying, oh, by the way, I'm a high net worth individual, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about social content, that's definitely a benefit from it because we're able to layer on that psychographic or demographic kind of content or targeting on top of it. But when it comes to straight up search, I mean, spending $250,000 a month is a significant amount in the family law space. Yeah. So are you doing quite a bit of testing from a keyword strategy, or are you just taking all the leads that you need to get in and then use your intake team to filter them out, and then you're profitable based on the cases that you're bringing in still at the aggregate level?
It's both. So I don't think you can have one without the other. Once you get to a certain point, you're going to get a significant number of leads that just are not fits for your firm. And I'm very open and honest about our numbers. I just got reported out on earlier this week. About 30% of our leads that come in from Google are non-viable leads. Yeah. But that is baked into the cost of what we do there. I know down to the dollar what it costs to acquire a client. And so we know what we can spend. We know the number of non-viable leads we can bring in. We know the percentage we have to close at. We know all of those numbers.
So something about family law is pricing elasticity, right? When it comes to other practice areas, you don't necessarily have that. So have you, like, once you go through that kind of like understanding of what you should be paying per lead, what you're paying per lead, did that have an impact on then how you're pricing your service? I mean, obviously you're targeting most divorce clients that we have are like, I'm targeting high income individuals, right? Yeah. So did you then after we went through that saying, okay, it's costing us, I don't know, $3,000 to acquire the type of client that we want, did you then adjust your pricing off the back of that to ensure profitability? Or like talk to me about that process?
Yeah, we kind of, in terms of pricing, we kind of fell into it. Right now, we're depending on the market, and we have offices in the Inland Empire, in Orange County, in San Diego, in the Coachella Valley, and each market is very different, and we run campaigns specific to those markets. So, and we know ballpark what the average case value is for each of those markets. We kind of fell into pricing. We've never really changed our pricing. It kind of fell perfectly into where it needed to be. We're a little bit profitable. We're pretty much break even on the initial retainer. And then our average case value, depending on market, is between $11,000 and $20,000. And so once we get past that initial retainer and they replenish, that's when we become profitable.
I love hearing that. I don't do much e-commerce anymore. I have actually the largest cannabis company in the country is a client of my consulting company, and they launched an apparel company. So I've been doing some e-commerce marketing there, and something that I'm pushing them and telling them over and over and over again that on the front end acquisition in today's game, like it's really just a matter of what you're willing to pay per customer. And a lot of times you're going to take a loss on it. And I see this in the law firm space as well, is that so many lawyers are so sensitive to what they're paying on the front end acquisition that they don't see the long-term picture of the LTV of that customer, that client.
Well, it's two pieces.
Yeah.
Russell Brunson quote, it's not about how little you can pay for the lead, it's who can pay the most for it. And piggybacking on that, in one of our markets, I'll say it was Riverside, we actually very intentionally were losing money past that $5,000 on some cases because there were a ton of small players. So we dumped about a year and a half ago, we dumped a ton of money into this 500,000 person geo to intentionally drive the cost up. It is now our lowest cost to acquire market because all of those small players had to leave. We could afford to wait until $6,000 or $7,000 into a case before we were profitable on that, and they could not, or they couldn't stomach it.
So it's incredibly smart. It's also, I guess ballsy is the right way to put it. Or, I appreciate that as an entrepreneur because, again, if you were to go talk to, John Morgan, he would probably say the exact same thing. He would say, I'm willing to spend whatever the F it takes just so my competitors don't get that lead because I'm playing the long-term game and I'm trying to suppress the market. And that's really what the legal space has become in the paid space, specifically paid search. There's some other avenues within organic that you might be able to play in terms of building content or ranking in the local maps pack, which are LSAs too, are a little bit more of a platform that Google actually built for smaller businesses to not have to spend as much and to get some, it's supposed to be a little bit more democratic in terms of how they serve it. Whether or not that actually happens is a different ballgame. Yeah, exactly. It's a publicly traded company, man. They're trying to make money. But that's what they built it for, right? Because paid search, which to me, even as an SEO guy, I will still admit that paid search is probably the best and fastest way to grow a law firm if you have the stomach for it, right? Because it just becomes a matter of what are you willing to pay for a customer and what are you doing with that customer to, one, if you have a one-time payment service, you have to be able to turn that into a referral flywheel. You have to be able to take one customer that you're willing to almost take a loss paying for and then turn that into more profits, over time. And so many law firms are just a little bit too short-sighted in how they see it, that's why they struggle. And people like you come in, you see the long game and you are willing to pay more per customer and you're willing to suppress them. And it's really what you have to do to be able to grow and really scale in today's market. But the challenge is that it's so expensive.
Well, and you're in an extremely competitive space. I tell people this is the legal space is a solid 5 to 7 years behind most other industries. Yeah, you have to be able, in the marketing space, you have to be able to stomach a whole lot. You have to be able to stomach 18 months, 2 years before a client is profitable for you. Yeah. In the legal space, to be honest, about a third of our work is domestic violence restraining orders. Yeah. We've made our money back inside of 3 weeks. In any other industry, any other type of entrepreneurship, they are throwing as much money into that ATM as possible that you can be profitable in 3 weeks.
So in terms of your paid spend in Google, is it mainly on AdWords or are you guys doing a good amount of LSAs as well?
LSAs, it's about 50-50 right now.
Okay.
So we have multiple locations. So we have 7 Google business profiles for our 7 different office locations. And anywhere from about $10,000 to, I think in our Irvine, California office, we're a tick under $30,000 a month in spend. So we have quite a range there. And then we spend about $125,000 a month on PPC. That's primarily in 2 different types of campaigns. We run general family law search terms, and then we also run lawyer near me campaigns with a ton of negative keywords. So we can shrink it down to just getting family law leads in that near me campaign.
Yeah, in those Google business profiles, something we're doing more and more for our clients, especially the ones that aren't willing to pay $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 a month in ads, because if your cash flow is locked up, if you're not collecting on that in a shorter period of time, your cash flow gets locked up. It becomes difficult even for the most seasoned entrepreneurs to be able to stomach that. But man, Google business profiles are worth their weight in gold right now because the local search algorithm, one, is it's faster and it's easier to rank in, and 2, from all of our data, we have 75 plus clients. Over 50% of phone calls across multiple different practice areas come from that Google business profile.
Yeah, right. Go open your office in a suburb, not the major city, Instead of having your office in Los Angeles, for example, we have a Long Beach, California location. Long Beach is one of the 50 biggest cities in the United States. Based on our research, we are the only Long Beach-based office that is running LSA ads. That campaign is absolutely killing it. It's pushing Orange County and Los Angeles, the city, LSA campaigns into Long Beach. So we're showing up first 100% of the time.
Yeah, it's really, really smart. A quick history for those who don't know, Google Business Profiles used to be super easy to get. There's a whole rank and rent industry in the marketing space where you would basically set one up and then rent it to a law firm or a contractor, whatever, once you had it ranking, and you would basically just, pay per lead model. Google has gotten really, really strict. They're using video. You have to have an actual signage and video to actually...
Oh, it's the best. They give you 2 minutes. We opened our Irvine location. We were on the 4th floor. So I had to start outside and then sprint into the elevator, ride up, get to the front desk where the sign was at.
But it's actually when they first started doing it, I kind of got a little pit in my stomach, but that because no more Regises, no more WeWorks, no more PO boxes, none of the kind of little, I guess, gray hat spam tactics will work. But then I was like, actually, this is probably the best thing for us, because what they're doing is this is why Google Business Profiles are so impactful, because there's less competition, right? When you talk about ranking in the traditional organic SERPs, anybody can launch a page for San Diego, Carlsbad, Palm Desert, and try and rank down there. But that has gotten suppressed all the way down. Google doesn't care about that anymore. They're like, okay, you want to create content and rank down there, go for it. But we're going to put LSAs on top. We're going to put 4 paid search ads. We're going to put the Maps pack on top. We're going to put all this noise on top. So people aren't even scrolling down there and reaching it anymore.
And then 75% of the time, we're going to put a Performance Max ad at the top of the 3-pack.
Yeah, those work.
That's a new one.
Yeah, I love those. Yeah, so they're worth their weight in gold. It's like a scaling strategy that we're pushing on a lot of firms now. We're being like, hey, look at for $500, and to your point too, a lot of law firms, I think, play on a little bit more of an old school ego base where they want to have that shiny office in a popular downtown area. But I'm like, your cases aren't probably coming from there. 1, and 2, you're spending out the nose just to be there. When we can strategically put these across the state in markets that we've researched in terms of population, demographics, income, competition, and have them ranking within, 3 to 4 months and producing 50 to 100 phone calls a month in some of these markets, it's pretty nuts, right?
Yeah.
So they perform really, really well. So that's Google. You guys are doing very well there. Are you guys using an agency, or are you guys doing that all in-house?
We have worked with agencies. We do have a full-time in-house marketing department. We've worked for the last several years in various capacities with SMB team.
Yep.
And then we also have a 3-person in-house marketing team.
I love it. I actually, I've been running agencies for better part of, 2 decades now. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, I actually have the domain, and we're launching an offer for fireagency.com, because once you get to a certain point,
yeah,
agencies fucking suck. It's best to try and pull it in-house. I think agencies have and this is me selling to law firms, I don't care, agencies serve their purpose for a certain period of time, but no one is going to understand your brand, your messaging, your market, and be spending all of their time trying to solve your problems versus an agency who you're getting a team of experts dedicated to you, but it's for a shorter period of time. So speaking of which, that translates into social pretty well, because social is something that you're doing a ton of, right? You're creating content. You've got studios. I see you on Instagram doing interviews, creating shorts. Talk to me about that. How long have you been doing social content for, and what's been the impact of that so far?
Yeah, so the firm was founded 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, and from day one, I was doing content. My first hire was actually my mother, and she was essentially just managing a relationship with an agency that was editing video for us and then posting it on social media. So we have always been a content-first business, and that's because I believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, every single business is going to be a media company on the front end, and then you're going to deliver a good or service on the back end. So if you aren't building that machine right now, when we get to that point, you're going to be out of luck.
So are you doing any paid social spend on top of the organic stuff?
Yeah. So we've had so much success on Google. It's actually kind of throttled our growth on Meta. We do spend quite a bit on YouTube, but it's really throttled our growth because we've had so much success navigating kind of the Google landscape. But we operate now on Meta, so Facebook and Instagram. And we actually, probably about 2.5 weeks ago, released our first professionally produced commercial that we're running. We just started running ads across all of those platforms.
And are you doing anything on TikTok?
We do. Crazy enough, TikTok, outside of YouTube, TikTok is probably the most reliable lead generator in terms of social media. We don't get a ton of reach, but it is much more directed at who we want it to be directed at, even on the organic front.
Yeah, it's extremely cheap too. We've dabbled in a lot of things for clients. We search first for everything that you just said. And I love doing these interviews too, because, I talk to a lot of very successful attorney business owners like yourself, and 100% of them are like, it starts with Google. It's point of interest, it's point of search. It's just the highest qualified traffic. You're going to pay more for it, but if you can get it to work, it's going to have the highest success rate, right?
It's a long-term strategy too. I'm 33 years old, and we work with a lot of attorneys. We talk to a lot of attorneys who are 10, 20, even 30 years older than I am. And I'm like, if you want your law firm to stand the test of time, my generation is internet-based. So if you're not willing to play the game on the internet, your business is going to be gone in a few years.
Yeah, I still have a lot of conversations. I actually do a lot of our social ads are like poking fun at billboards a lot. I see a lot of value in billboards. They actually drive a lot of SEO value because of branded search is like one of the key ranking factors that nobody really knows or talks about, because it's just something impossible to fake. When people are seeing your billboards, they search for you. I actually looked up your website. You've got a lot of people searching for real fathers' rights, which is actually great. It's a really, really important ranking factor that no SEO agency talks about because they can't reproduce it. TV, radio, billboards, stuff like that is still a great driver of it, but I love
billboards, but I think they're too expensive. This is where I think you need to niche down. So where do? We don't do general billboards. $10,000 a pop, like you got to be ready to drop $10,000 a month in our market. You got to be ready to drop $100,000 a month to have an impact. Where do we do? Our core focus on marketing is we want the parents of every single 5-year-old athlete in Southern California to know who Real Fathers Rights is. And if we do that, we will have never-ending leads in eternity.
Yeah.
So where do we do the more traditional advertising? We are all 3 minor league baseball teams in the Inland Empire. We have outfield billboards, promotions, different things like that. We just signed a deal with ESPN Radio. So where these parents of 5-year-olds are going, rather than spending $10K a month on the 91 freeway, we are spending $12K a month to have a billboard inside, or a wall sign inside each of those minor league ballparks, where most likely those parents this summer are taking their kids.
Yeah. And I also think too, to your point, and what I was saying too, is that I still have so many conversations to this daily basis with attorneys that I'm trying to siphon just a little bit of budget from their billboards that they're spending $300,000 a month on across. I mean,
no.
You cannot drive down I-95 in South Florida without being bombarded with injury law firm billboards. It's nuts. It's like, I think part of it, like I said, is an ego thing, right? People like seeing their face on a 100-foot billboard and, people recognize them. I think it has its place, but to your point, it's the price of that attention versus what you can get elsewhere. If you took that and just put that on Meta with the same shit billboard messaging that you're running, you can get far more impressions and sticky impressions too, because, when people are driving, unfortunately, we don't want to admit it, but they're looking at their phones for the most part, and so the attention factor on social platforms in the price of that attention is far less. But then when you couple it with the fact of saying, okay, well, instead of just running commercials, what if we ran value, right? And that's where I think the content that you're producing is so important. And again, a lot of law firms have extreme short-sightedness. They are looking for, if I put up $1, I need to make $2, and I want to do that in 60 days. Can you do that? Yes or no? And I'm like, you're looking at this wrong, man. Like anybody who tells you yes is full of it, and 2, like it just doesn't work like that, right? Like you have to be willing to produce something of value in today's market with today's consumer if you want to stick top of mind. People are like, billboards are top of mind. I'm like, billboards aren't top of mind, man. Nobody's driving 90 miles an hour down I-95, sees your phone number, and then remembers it when they get in a car accident. It just, it doesn't work like that, But what happens is when somebody sends you a reel, right? Or somebody, no pun intended with your name, or somebody sends you a TikTok, right? They forward it to you. that sticks in your mind. And then what also sticks, that sticks in your algorithm, because they're going to start seeing your content organically over and over again. And then Facebook or TikTok or whatever the platform is going to say, okay, this person is actually in market for this because they've engaged with this content. So now we're going to serve you these ads. So I tell people all the time that like the reason why they struggle with really all advertising is because they're just trying to run straight up commercials, right? You're trying to run commercials and nobody's engaging with it unless you are catching people that are bottom funnel completely in market right now, which is really hard to do. We're talking about a fraction of the market. You have the exact right intention. You're saying, I'm not trying to advertise to people who are going through a divorce right now, because then you're just actually competing for pricing. You want to try and get your audience, which is a much bigger, and that's when top of mind happens, right? Because they're seeing your content, they've engaged with you, they're following you somewhere. And then Facebook, it just knows, man. It sees your text messages, it sees your phone calls. It will serve you that right ad at the right time when you're actually in market, and they're going to recognize you. And that's what it is now. It's an ecosystem, right? Everything is connected through our phones. We opt into everything, whether we want to admit it or not. I don't know how it's legal, but it somehow is. And these phones know everything about us. And the advertising platforms now are so succinct. It really just comes down to content. If you're continuously creating and producing content and serving it, over time, it's going to snowball, and it just works. So when I see an attorney doing what you're doing, you know, it's no surprise that within 3 years, you've had the success that you're having, right? Because you're doing all the things that a modern law firm should be doing and executing on a regular basis.
Yeah. I would challenge you on one point. I think for 99% of law firms on Google, on Meta, on the internet, there are enough bottom of the funnel, ready to buy consumers that you will never run out of ad spend. I promise you that. 99.9% of law firms, unless you're spending the tens of millions of dollars that Morgan and Morgan or some of these other giants, we have a few of them out here, there's always going to be bottom of the funnel, but you're going to be at Google's mercy. And that's where like our content play comes in. It's like we don't create content for child support and that. We're creating content that somebody's going to send to our ideal client because it gets fed to their feed and they're like, oh, this reminds me of so-and-so. Oh, this, like we have hundreds of videos on defending false allegations because that's one thing our ideal client faces and has an immediate need for.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree with you. That's why we specialize in Google marketing, because it is bottom funnel, point of interest. Mm-hmm. I'm in market right now. And it also lends very well to work with law firms because for the most part, most law firms don't want to have the level of involvement that you have. They don't want to build a content team. They don't want to build studios. They want to work with clients and get phone calls, and that's it.
That's what gives agencies a bad name. There are so many really, really good agencies that I hear lawyers talking poorly about, and it's like, it wasn't a them problem. This is a you problem. You delegated without telling them anything. All they can do is implement best practice. And best practice may not work 100% of the time for your firm. But without you giving feedback, without you being involved, any agency is going to fail eventually.
Yeah, I'm going to clip that and run that. That's all.
Yes.
Everyone in my pipeline. But you also said something interesting, Mark, when we were first getting started. You said that you have been testing. So Google, you know, obviously produces a ton of direct call volume for you guys, right? It's easy to quantify, $1 in, $3 out, LTV, etc., right? But you also said something interesting, that you've been testing and seeing a lot of success sending people to social content. Did I get that right?
Yes. Yeah. So we haven't done our operation. We don't necessarily have the software. We're working to get it situated. But at one point in time, we discovered that for every client that signed with us, they had watched on average 6 pieces of our social media content. So they click on we do, I guess it's about 50-50 call only versus landing page on Google, but we send them to a landing page, and then that landing page, the next step is going to push them to our YouTube page with over 1,000 videos. They go into our database, and for 14 days, they're being fed social media content. So our number one driver, we get those direct calls. We do a consultation. Usually within 12 to 18 hours, they've talked to someone, but we immediately start feeding them social media content. Now, our clients, the vast majority of them, and we have 20 attorneys, over 700 cases, the vast majority of our clients never have any FaceTime with me. they never speak with me. But they know, like, and trust me because we have force-fed them social media content talking about the issues that matter to them.
There's so many parallels for what we do. It's the same thing that we do here. You know, selling to attorneys is extremely difficult because they have been burned so many times. And a lot of times, you know, to your point, it's their fault, but most of the time it's the agency's fault. There's also, for as many good agencies out there, there's 100 bad agencies.
When I hear them talking poorly about someone I know does a good job, I know it's an attorney problem.
That's fair. But it's really difficult to sell because there's so many barriers of trust that you have to break down because, you know, we're all kind of selling commodity when it comes to search marketing. Like it's not something new and cutting edge here. There's a lot of people that can do it. So content is an incredibly important part of what we do. I have 3 YouTube channels. I have 3 companies that I own and operate. This agency is just one of them. But our YouTube channel is so important, and also our paid ads on social, because we don't run any ads direct call booking on social. We are spending 100% of our money sending people to, we call it a VSL, a video sales letter, a 10-minute video that's like, this is your problem, here's how to solve it. Oh, by the way, if you want to talk to me, I can do this for you. Just hit the link below and we can chat. But we always embed a YouTube video into that landing page. And the reason is because if they watch that YouTube video, what happens is the next time they log into YouTube on their own, guess who's showing up? Me.
Yeah.
Right? It's showing up on the suggested feed. It's the same thing that you guys are doing. So this is what I was saying. It's all an ecosystem. And it's just about finding that entry point and also having the patience in the vision and the belief that, like, because we're all consumers on our own. And this is what I was telling my clients. I'm like, yo, like, you have to understand, like, you're a consumer first. Just think about how you go through this process, right? Like it's very rare that you just see something, call and then shell out 20 grand or whatever it is that you expect them to shell out, right? It's a process. It's not a direct line. Even the people that are going to Google directly searching for it, they've been researching before, right? They've been fed videos and all this other stuff.
Well, and we're operating kind of on that second tier. I tell attorneys, the first thing you need to do with your social media content is you need to write down the 20 most commonly asked questions from your ideal client. Not everybody. We always talk about ideal client. So you write down the 20 most common questions you get from your ideal client, and then over the next 20 days, and the first 500 or so videos were literally filmed on this. I'm sitting in a studio, multiple cameras, videographer, everything in here now. But it started out on my cell phone in a ring light like this, filming the first 500 or so videos. But film 20 videos of the 20 most commonly asked questions of your ideal client and just have them out there. YouTube, Instagram, all these social media platforms are the gift that keeps on giving. YouTube's the second biggest search engine. So if you just simply answer the questions your ideal client has, you're going to run into people. And then eventually you're going to get to the level of sophistication where we're at, where it's like, hey, landing page, VSL, drive them to the social, drip feed them social content. You're going to get to that. But the first step is just put your cell phone. Hey, YouTube, you're going to go horizontal, film those 20 videos and put them out there so that they can start gaining traction. They can just be out there for your ideal client to find.
So the biggest pushback, because I tell this to people all the time too, I'm like, look, we don't do organic social for you. That's something that you need to own. We're creating topics on your website that you can just pop up in a video and do yourself. But the biggest pushback I get is, I don't have time for that, man. I got clients, I got a family. This isn't what I do. Like, what would you say to those attorneys who play that I don't have the time role? Like, where do you find the time?
Well, number one is, I mean, when I did this, I was billing 200. When I started this, I was billing 250, 300 hours a week, running a business, going all in on the growth of it. You don't need to script it. You don't need to do all this crazy stuff. You are the attorney. You're probably a subject matter expert. To be honest, if you're working with an agency, if I looked at you today, I'm like, hey, what are the 20 most common questions that you come across on search? You, in 24 hours, could probably have that list to me with really no work on your end. You probably already have all that information internally. And you just film a 3 to 7 minute video. It doesn't have to be anything complex. You don't need to cite the code. One of the things that I think is really successful about our social media is I was a baby attorney when I started doing it, so I didn't sound like an attorney. I was talking like our clients did. My conversation in the video sounded like a dad, and a dad could understand it, and that was able to resonate with him. So it's not something that has to be super scripted. To be honest with you, you can screw up, you can pause, you can just restart your sentence, And I'll tell you this is, you can find really, really good editors abroad that'll charge you $100 a week for, even if you're sending over 6 or 7 5 to 7 minute videos, for them to edit. And then you can just throw them up on YouTube. I mean, it really is not a time commitment. I think the time commitment is, it's one of those objections that it's not really a true objection. It's an excuse as to why you don't have the balls to do it.
It is. So another one of my companies is actually, it's a coaching program for agencies. And it's so crazy because the similarities between, we obviously have a very different service, but in terms of like the acquisition and marketing process, it's very, very, very similar. And I go through that objection all the time with agencies. I'm like, yo, like, social media is free, guys. There is no fee to use it. It is incredible what you can do, especially in my industry. Like, if you just post, it's a little bit different for you. LinkedIn is probably not as good of a platform as the other ones, but like in my space, LinkedIn is like all marketers. So like it's
my inbox lets me know that.
Yeah, I know it's a wasteland. You can't go in your DMs. But dude, post every day. Like it takes 5 minutes of your time to sit down and just write down your thoughts. And people are always, just a problem with our culture here too, is that people look at where you are and they compare themselves to you. And they're like, Mark, I'm not as good. I don't have the camera. I don't have the showmanship that you have. I don't have the ability. But it's like, one, I didn't start there. And two, you can market to people that are at a different stage in the journey. Like when you're first getting started, to your point, like you're running on raw emotion, like my brother's actually going through it right now. And the emotion that he's going through, like it's tough, man. Like I just had our first kid, and I'm married, but like it's really sunk in for me too, watching him go through it. Like it is such a raw emotional experience that like it's overwhelmed his entire life. His entire life is now just focused on running through this. So that is something that, I don't want to say that you should monetize everything, but that's something that like you can use, right? That's something that you did use that relates to people, right? And especially on social, when you're competing against some of these other law firms that are just running these big commercials, doesn't really feel very personal, it doesn't.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. You're not good on camera. Go get on camera every single day for the next 365 days. And I guarantee you'll be in the 1%. It's really that easy. Go to the Father's Rights Attorney YouTube page, click on the oldest. There are some hilariously awful videos. There are neon lights in the background. They're actually filmed in my bedroom at the time, which is another hilarious point of this. But we have like neon lights, like there's bookshelves with like it is hilariously awful. And I'm filming it on a webcam with a $40 microphone. And I didn't even need that. I just did that because I wanted to feel official. So, I mean, I think that's probably the worst excuse, because attorneys can talk and they can talk all day long. It's just a matter of you're not hitting record on the camera. And I mean, just 1 year of doing it daily. Number one is you're going to have some hilarious memories of, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I put that in my background. I can't believe I did that. But you're just going to get so much better. And the bar is so low. Yeah. Like, that's the thing, is the bar is so low on substantive content, because you're not looking to be a social media influencer. Let's just be honest. Subscribers, followers, they're great, and you need a certain level for credibility, but those are beach muscles.
Yeah. Because
I can go create trending videos that get broad reach, but they aren't talking to my ideal client. You got to be okay getting 19 views, 17 views, getting 3 likes. And all you're looking for is one of those people to be an ideal client for you.
Yeah. And I think too, is that when you're, it's a good point about the views and the likes, because a lot of people get discouraged by that. But I tell my agency clients all the time, because one of the big coaching points that I have for agencies, you have to specialize. Like, you as an attorney are not going to hire an agency that doesn't work with attorneys. Like, if it's their first time doing it, it's too much of a beast for them not to. So a big part of an agency is specialization, working with a single client type. And I tell them, like, if you have that avatar kind of dialed in and you're creating content, even if you're getting 19 views, if 19 attorneys are watching your video, that's pretty damn good. Right? So don't get caught up in that, because it's not about the view count. It's really about, first of all, putting one foot in front of the other and just walking every single day. You're going to be at a completely different place in a year from now.
We have less than 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, but it'll probably help generate us 8 figures in revenue in 2025. Yeah. I mean, that's where you want to be. I mean, there's Hermosi just came out with a video I was watching the other day where he kind of went broad interest. I'm a big Alex Hormozy fan. He kind of went broad interest and was all about viewers and subscribers and everything like that. And he recently has narrowed back down because he realized in going broad and gaining more, he was getting outside of his target market. But these social media platforms are getting so good at serving your target audience where you're probably getting more quality than you realize in that, hey, we got 100 views, but it's relevant to 47 of the people who watched it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, his book, $100 million Offer, the Game Changer. I read his new book. I didn't think it was as good. It was a little bit too maybe rudimentary for where I am, but his first book is a complete game changer. Probably top 2 marketing book I've ever read in my life. It's really, really, really good. Mark, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy dude. Looks like you got a lot of content to film today, maybe.
Yes, yeah. Thursdays are content days, so it'll be filming the rest of the day.
I love it. Batch filming, that's what I do. I have a studio here in Miami that I go to once a week. I hate doing it, but I force myself to do it, and it's the best thing. 4 hours in there, and it completely changes the outlook of my businesses. Tell the people where they can find out some more information about you.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on pretty much every single social media platform. My personal stuff where I do talk about legal, we do post that stuff, but I also post a lot about business. Just be Mark Real Jr. So most of that's on YouTube and Instagram at Mark Real Jr. All of our firm content is father's rights attorneys. And so you can see everything we do, everything we create that is directed, that's helped us grow from nothing to multi-8-figure law firm in just a few years.
Love it, man. I appreciate your time.